What if I told you the way it has always been done is not the best way? Facing your fears will change your life. The passion behind this journey is merging two separate worlds into one with the goal of creating value and awareness for a better life.
I'd rather be sidelined trying to achieve greatness than watch greatness achieved and it only set on the sideline. Now introducing your host, Jacob Emery.
This episode is brought to you by R&R Pipeline, an infrastructure company. Our purpose? Enhancing America's infrastructure with a safety-driven, integrity-led culture that provides an environment for team members to grow and thrive. Welcome to another edition of the Iron and Infrastructure Podcast. And today's guest is a marketing specialist. He is an iron addict. He's resilient in leadership. He's a staple in his community. And he's got a very interesting story. This man is also a friend of mine from Strategic Coach. Patrick, welcome to the show. Patrick, say your last name.
Payanotov.
Okay, I would have been close, but not nearly close enough. So I'm just going to go call you Patrick, and we'll let that be for what it is, because I know that I will not do you any justice on the last name. Where are you from? Let's talk about that last name real quick. Go ahead and talk about your upbringing and kind of where that last name is all about.
Yeah, so the Bulgarian, so my family's Bulgarian. Payanotov is the official Bulgarian pronunciation. Now, when my parents immigrated here in their 20s, we came to Chicago, so that's where you get the Payanotov, a little Chicago in there to spice it up. A really cool background, though. I had a chance, a lot of my extended family still in Bulgaria, and traveling there, growing up. I mean, the first time I was on a flight, I must have been 2 or 3. And this is when your parents could walk you up to the gate, or at that time, getting flown with somebody else. But going to Bulgaria over the summers was a cool way for a young mind to see the world in a different light, because it's easy. You probably hear it all the time from people that immigrated to America, like, oh, people here don't know how good they have it. The opportunities are here, but it's difficult if you're born into it and then you see the opportunities in America, but also the challenges that America brings, and you think, okay, well, this is a wide divide and there's no way to get through this challenge. It kind of sticks with you versus going to a different part of the world where it's the floor's lower and the ceiling might not be as high. And then you realize, wait, the opportunities that are here. And one of the cool things, I mean, the differences you see is Bulgaria, when my parents left, was just coming off of communism. And one of the difficulties there is, one of the benefits, right, is nobody has anything, so you don't know any different. But when communism fell, there was a lot of opportunity, but there wasn't the infrastructure, the capital to support it. Versus in America, it's one of those places where you could really work your ass off and achieve something, and it's different, right? In America, if you want to work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, there's an abundance of places that'll hire you, and there's an abundance of oh man, we're going to take this podcast in 17 different directions. But just one example of why I love it, why I love what we do in our local communities. I'm a big part of the Schaumburg Chamber of Commerce, and we have a new member orientation once a quarter, and it's usually 30 to 50 new business owners, and you get a wide range of backgrounds, personalities, ethnicities, and every single person in there has a dream and a business, and every other person in that room is looking for them to succeed. How can we help your business? Do you have a website? Do you have a brand? Let me connect you with my cousin, can help you. Oh, you do roof installation. Well, you know what? I have a partner that needs a roof. And it's this energy where, and this is again a super generalized statement about Europe, but in my general experience and what I've heard from my family members that have started businesses in Bulgaria, it's not that welcoming to new entrepreneurs. It's more of, oh, why would you start a business? You could just work for somebody else. It's more pessimistic because they don't have that what's the word I'm looking for? The habit of seeing the abundance mindset versus here is, I mean, you see it all the time of people start businesses and they want to do better and they want to do something different, and it's welcoming to that environment. So That's a long-winded answer of
No, I love
explaining
it.
my last name.
I love it, but it just shows that you grew up here, but then you got a dose of reality probably pretty early in your life, and that probably really created even more energy for you to want to be driven and be an entrepreneur, and because of understanding everybody didn't get that opportunity where you come from.
I mean, you see the difference. I don't know about, were you a first child? Do you have siblings?
I have a younger sister. Yeah.
But you're the first one.
Yep.
Okay, so first child, I am as well. A lot of benefits, a lot of challenges, but benefits. I mean, you're your parents' favorite. You're the only one. You get spoiled a little bit. I mean, there were days where when I was growing up, it's like, I want McDonald's, I want this. There's nobody else. It's just me, and it's nice going. You need one, having a sibling immediately level sets your expectations because you're not the main focus. But two, traveling and realizing Bulgaria. I mean, truly, Bulgaria had one McDonald's, and it was so vastly overpriced compared to the average meal. It was crazy. I think it's like the only McDonald's that closed in Ruse, Bulgaria, but it helps level set you.
I bet. I cannot even imagine. And what's funny? There's a guy named Mario. He works at the hotel bar whenever we go to coach in Chicago, Rosemount. And
yeah,
first time I ever talked to him, he told me he's from Russia. He's an immigrant as well. And like we just started talking about capitalism in general, and his viewpoint was so different. And so we're friends now. Every time I go in there and see him, he comes up and gives me a hug and stuff. But we had such a in-depth, genuine, 3-hour-long conversation, and I was so interested in what he had to say because I never understood it, never heard it before, and his point of view was fascinating to me. Where what I thought capitalism is to me and to most of America, his viewpoint is very different, and so it was so unique to hear that different life perspective from
wait, what kind of a
Russia.
viewpoint? What did he share? What was his? Can you condense it down into a statement, or that's too? It was too wide.
He did not look at capitalism as the freedom and opportunity environment that we do. He didn't understand what we do about capitalism from a young age because he was older when he came here. So he viewed it more like that doesn't provide opportunity, to a lot of people. So that's what made it so unique is I was profound, it was paradigm shattering to hear what he had to say about capitalism in general because he just didn't think there was an opportunity there. And he's also from the Chicago area. So he's probably thinking, corporate, big, business environment. And he probably never seen that opportunity or knew how to get that opportunity created for him. So it was just so interesting to hear, his viewpoint on it. It was very fascinating.
Yeah. I mean, that's...
So tell me, go ahead.
I feel like there's a transition coming, and I just want to transition it to if the audience and some of the listeners here, you mentioned, hey, they might be 18 to 45, they might be struggling with a direction in life. What I've always felt and what really helped me at a young age is learning how to dream. And what you mentioned, right, if I misclassify this quote, we'll edit this out, but Henry Ford, right, if you think you can or you think you can't, you're probably right. It's learning how that initial dreaming or just visualizing what you want to do, because you see people succeeding in life, but it's not by accident. They have some vision, like you yourself, like you wake up at 4 a.m., you go work out, and you're not doing it because it is ingrained at this point, but when you started out, it probably sucked, and it's difficult now to wake up in the mornings. It still sucks, but see, I'm working down to your time. I'm at 6 a.m. now, and it's right on the edge. But it's visualizing one of the things that helped me out, and I'll share it. You might have heard about this. It's called the have be do list, and it's similar to you write just have, I want to be, I want to do. And you just start going down this list, and you spend a week on it, not 10 minutes and go, okay, I have 5 things per, but you like truly put 30 things in each column, because then you get deep into the weeds of like, I want to have a family, and then I want to be a good dad, and and you could be selfish, right? I want to have a Tesla. I want to have $1 million. But you start actually writing down the things that matter to you. And then I stole this from Coach, but you sit there and you circle the ones that really resonate with you, circle the top 5, and now you have some real things that you can base your life around instead of what everybody does and makes the mistake of is January 1st. They go, hey, I'm going to work out every day without any foundation or background or belief, and just this empty promise versus I want to run one of my things. I want to run a 10K because, it's achievable, but also, a half marathon is a little bit much for now. But now you have something where you're like, okay, I want to run a 10K, and it doesn't matter the reason. Like, who cares? It's your mind. You could do whatever you want. But now when you have it, you circle it, and you're like, okay, I'm going to do this, and you start working towards it, so it makes waking up a little easier. It's my little tangent on personal, just creating this foundation of people like, where do I start? It's like, start with what you want to do. I want to go to Europe for a month. Okay, there it is. Nobody gives a shit. Like, do what you want to do and set your mind to it.
I love it. You could not have teed me up more for something that I'm very passionate about. First of all, the Henry Ford quote, I have used it in State of the Company addresses. I use it all the time because it's true. If you don't think you can do something, I guarantee you're going to be right. And if you do believe that you can achieve something, I also guarantee that it's possible. Unless physics tells you it's not, it's possible. Look at every person in history that wanted to. You got to be kind of delusional and about half a psychopath when you're going to break through a barrier and do something that's never been done before. But that's what makes it worth it, and that's what.
But that's where the value comes in. Where you're,
Yes.
if you're coaching somebody, it's not I could give you the workout routine. You could Google unlimited nutritional habits. You can Google unlimited workouts. It's that difference between the belief of I think I can and the belief of I think I can't is such a difficult thing to do, and why coaches exist, because we have the how to do it, but this foundational why is what the difficult part is.
So believing in yourself is one thing. And, at a young age, I never did. Whenever I was growing up, dude, I was overweight. I got picked on. I got teased for it. And it's probably funny to you now. But I was a fat kid growing up that got my ass kicked for being a fat kid. And I was terrified and insecure of being in front of a camera, being in the spotlight. I would shake if I was going to go put my hand up to answer a question in school.
Yeah.
Like I would shit my pants, dude. It was something I was so against. And I would have the answers and I would be terrified to even think about it. But I didn't give myself any grace. But the other part was I couldn't say that everyone was wrong. I was insecure. I wasn't confident in myself. And I would down my own self. I would say, things that were not, uplifting to myself. And it just drove me down in that pit, which is exactly, if you think you can achieve something or you don't think you can, just having that little bit of belief becomes a bigger belief. So if you just say, you know what, I just think I can, 1% chance, and tomorrow is going to be 2%, and you just slowly let that compound effect add up, then you've done it before long.
But it's my feeling is those weaknesses early on in life, no matter what they are, what turn into your biggest strengths, because you sit there and you know the downside of it. And I'm sure that has contributed on some level of, okay, well, I've been in the shit. Now the difference is dramatic.
It is, because what's the worst thing that's going to happen if I do go for this? What is the cost of inaction? It's massive, because you die with regret. You die with this inaction tax that it's fatal, because you can't ever go back and redo it. But if unanswered questions to me, like if I think I can achieve it, when I started the podcast, I have no idea in hell if I can really do this or not. There's a lot more of a likelihood that I fail than I would be to be successful in this. Yeah. And it still probably could fail, but it's been 120 episodes. Wow. I released in October of 23, and ever since then, 2 episodes every week since that point. So that's what needs to be ingrained. It's you set the goal and then you set a consistent habit for an X amount of time. And when I talked to you about it, you said, I'm doing this for 2 years with no expectations.
And the average person will say, hey, I'm going to work out every day and I'm going to set my level at 1 week with no expectations. And then after that 1 week, if I don't see any results, I'm done. And that's the biggest mistake. I mean, when I set my goals, and I started this from an early age, and it can help anybody doing their annual goal setting. Instead of doing a New Year's resolution, do a couple goals and say, people love to overestimate their abilities. And I use that to my advantage of, I don't think I read a single book in college, and I barely read a book in high school. So when I said, okay, I want to be a reader. That was my goal. I want to be a reader. And I was like, I'll read 12 books in 1 year, which sounds hilariously easy until you get to month 6 and you haven't picked up a book. And now you're like, oh shit, like this is something that we need to get to. But what you said is, hey, I'm doing this for 2 years and I'm going to be consistent, and my vision is big. My outcomes are achievable, but doing it consistently is what actually leads to the results, instead of the alternative of setting your expectations high, but the timeline is a week or 2 weeks, or, hey, I'm going to work out every day like Jacob. I'm going to wake up at 4 a.m. for a month, and if I don't see results, I'm going to quit. And that's not a recipe for success.
Thinking that it's going to be easy in any capacity is what makes the failure so likely to happen. Knowing that it's going to be hard and setting an expectation of time, like you said, the 2 years. I said 2 years, I don't expect any return on the investment, but for 2 years I'm committed to it. And then after that, I'll reevaluate. There is a point in time, Patrick, where you got to push forward. There's a point where you also got to pull back and reevaluate. And then sometimes you got to pivot. I call it the push-pull pivot, where there are times where when we set a goal, we have this aspiration to achieve something, but our mindset then, when we set that, is limited in what we become 6 months down the road. And I know for me, I've had serious breakthroughs midway through accomplishing something or trying to, and then I had to reevaluate and say, man, I'm not quitting. I think this is lower than what my actual potential is at this point.
Do you have do you have an example of it? Because I'm very much you set your goals for the year, and I set 5 personal, 5 professional, and I either hit them or I don't, but I never, mid-year, my rule is I'm not changing them. It's what it is, and if I give up on it, like, it's fine. Like, that's why I said, can you throw something at me of, like, here's what I got halfway through it, and I decided where it's going to be something completely different.
So I was on chapter 4 or 5 of writing a book. And so I had it almost done. I actually had a guy, I wasn't even going to take it to market. I was just going to do it and then use it more for people inside of the business, businesses that I'm part of. And the producer's like, yo, you got to take this to market. This shit's really good. And I was like, whoa, wait a minute. What? Let's back up here. And he's like, no, I'm serious. It's good. Let's, get it finished, bring it to me, and I'll do all the editing. And it was a friend of mine that, knew the guy. And I got the book rough draft done, the outline done. So I do audio, and then I have it transcribed, and then I let, people take it and run with it. And I got probably halfway through the 5th chapter, feeling pretty good about it, and pivoted at that moment to do the podcast. And this was just a couple years ago. So prime example would be that, because that goal was to get that book done, but my understanding of this space changed, and then the bigger vision changed pretty quick. So, and that's an example of it, that the most recent one I can think of.
So now you're saying there's a book somewhere in the making that, with the right connections, you could get access to. This golden nugget that's sitting on the dresser waiting to get released into the world.
So I will say this, there are 2 of them actually.
Okay.
So I went down another rabbit hole one day, and actually I had another one that I was able to put together, fairly short book, but and it was just my backstory, how the iron built my infrastructure. That's the name of the book, and that was the second one. The first one was The Pipeline to Prosperity, which was just my kind of personal story and what I put in my pipeline to be prosperous in life. And so I had to pivot, though, and I didn't have to. I just decided to, because of my dream. I got the opportunity to go speak at my high school, So when I was in high school, dead or in jail by 21 was my ceiling of success.
That,
so if that
yeah,
tells
that's
you anything,
wild. Seeing you now, that's wild.
yeah, by 16, I was a full-fledged alcoholic in a lot of trouble constantly. And I was, typical wild visionary, quick start that was just lost in a bureaucratic system.
Yep.
And I hated it. So I'm leaving school one day, 16-year-old. I'm asleep in class. I leave school, go out to hop in my truck. I crack open a beer at 16, chug the beer, throw it in between the little center sliding glass of my old Ford Ranger. And I'm leaving school. R&R Pipeline is outside of the school at that time, digging in a gas line. And I said to myself 10 or 20 times, I don't know if I said it out loud or internally, that's going to be my company one day. 10 times, that's going to be my company one day, for no rhyme or reason. And I didn't talk about that moment for 12 years after. 12 years after, I finally talked about it again. I'm walking back to the school at 35 years old. This was just, at the beginning of last year. And I'm getting ready to go talk to the kids, and it's an aspiring leaders class. And I'm humbled that I would even be considered for it. And I started getting this weird gut feeling like I did that same day, at 16. So almost 20 years later, I'm walking into school, grown-ass man. I'm just like, well, this is weird. My stomach's upset. Like, I'm not nervous. I talk all the time now.
I don't know. High schoolers nowadays are pretty intimidating. They
No.
got new jargon. They got new. They have apps that I don't even know exist.
Yeah, well, I'm a little ruthless too, so I don't really let that. I don't give them the opportunity to say too much. But so I go in to talk to the teacher about it because it is something that it was meaningful to me. And Patrick, I couldn't make it up if I tried, but I went into the school and I'm just like, my stomach's turning. I'm going, like, my memory is racing back to me being in high school. And I walk into the classroom to sit down and talk to the teacher. And it was the same exact classroom at 16 years old that I was asleep at. I sit down and talk to the teacher in the same seat at the exact same spot from 20 years prior.
Wow.
That I had that vision at 16 years old. And when I went there the first time to speak, I told my story like from a third person viewpoint. And when I got done, I let them all know, like, right here is that same exact spot this story started. And that was me 20 years ago. And so, like, it connected all the dots, got it tied together. It was super cool to be able to do that. But it takes me back to the dream. The dream framework is something that I've created, and it was one of the things that I talked to the kids about last. And the dream framework is pretty simple. You got to have a direction. So the D is direction, then R is risk, E is empower, action, and then mountain. Direction, you got to know where you're going. How do you hit a target if you don't have have one? If you can't see it, how do you hit a target that you don't have? So you got to be able to see it. It's got to be clear. And then risk, you got to be willing to take the risk, but you also have to know what happens if you don't. So when I think of risk, I think of to do, and if I do or if I don't. If I do take on this risk, what's the outcome? And if I don't, what's the outcome? Because I think looking at it from if I don't take it on is just as impactful if you do that cost of inaction. And then empower, you got to empower yourself first, but then you got to empower other people around you, because who not how from coach, we know that we can't do this shit on our own. We need a team of people.
Yeah.
And that's all cute. It's really cute. All these things, you got to have direction. You got to be able to take a risk. You got to empower yourself, but none of that matters if you don't take action. So action, you got to take consistent, disciplined steps toward the goal that you have in that direction. And then the mountain. So the mountain is about finding joy in the journey, not having destination disease, enjoying the climb up that mountain to achieve whatever your mountaintop is, and enjoying the process, all while having that big, hairy, audacious goal, enjoying the journey to get there. Because I didn't on my big one, to buy on our pipeline for 12 years. I didn't enjoy it. And I got up on my mountaintop and holy shit, I was miserable until a few years later when I figured it out. So that's the dream framework in recap. And I'm going to make that part of my coaching.
Yeah. I'm going to put you on the spot here. You had high school, you have a dream, a flash forward 12 years. Now you're 35, 36.
36.
36. Throw it out another 12 years, you're 48. If you had any inspiring visions to say, okay, I'm 48 and I'm blank.
I will tell you this as it's already happened. So by 48, already living the 4 freedoms through and through. My goal is 4 freedoms by 40. So that's my goal now. I will have talked on a TED Talk about how we changed the industry that we're in.
Yes.
I will be a guest on the Ed Milet podcast. And I think them were the big ones that for this conversation would be there.
Oh, I love it.
But just living the 4 freedoms, TED Talk, Ed Milet podcast, we changed the industry.
That's why you need big, hairy, audacious goals.
Yeah.
Good for your listeners. If you don't have a 10-year, 20-year, I mean, the TED Talk, very similar on my end. I think I have TED Talk / commencement address. And then, actually, funny enough, this is why goals come in handy. One of my goals was I wanted to be on a company board, imagining myself as an old, white-haired man to be able to be on some company board. And then my local Chamber of Commerce ended up asking me earlier on in my career. And I was like, oh, man, knocked that one out way sooner than I expected. And then that evolved into leading their board of, it was an 800 business Chamber of Commerce and new opportunities. So it definitely helps having those targets in mind because it now you know. And Ed Milet, big fan of the show, so when he's listening, he'll call you to be on.
Yeah, you better. I'm gonna light him up. And that's the thing, you just got to believe in yourself a little bit. And like the 4 C's, strategic coach, you just got to commit. But it's not committing to the whole entire thing. It's committing to that one step. Yeah. And, the journey to 1,000 miles starts with the first step. And so many people want this big glamorous accomplishment that they think is going to be, massive and life-changing and all that. This shit's boring, dude. Winning takes boredom. It takes boredom of the same thing over and over and over again and no result from it, and then you win. And 99% of the time, Patrick, the world has been right about me. 99% of the time, I was going to be that failure, that drunk kid that never went anywhere, that never broke free of that environment. 99% of the time, they were right. But the one time that I was right made me 100% correct. And that's, at the end of it, all the hate, all the things were just for me to create this opportunity for the life I have today.
That's awesome. And that's that 1%, then you succeed once. I mean, this is the difficulty that people need coaching for is you have that 1 or 2 levels of success and then you turn into what you are today where you didn't go from where you started to where you are. You every year, every day, small incremental change. Okay. Well, I mean, I guess this is a good question. You started working out. Was your first workout at 4 a.m. or did you start working out okay, I'm going to go and pick up a dumbbell? Or were you always,
right.
You said you're overweight, but were you at least putting up weight? Were you?
Not when I started, dude. I'm genetically probably one of the most unathletic and out of shape people you're ever going to meet. But, and I know that's probably hard for you to breathe. So many people were like, dude, you're full of shit. And I'm not. It's true. But I started learning this stuff at 13 to 15 years old, really learning it. I remember working out as a kid with the old red plates that had sand in them. And this little bar in the bench, my fat ass would barely get on and sit right. And that's what I started with, doing curls, probably at 10 to 12 years old. And then, eventually it evolved from there. But I started going before school for, quite a long time. I've always had to work though. So at 16 years old, if I wasn't going to school, I was working during the summer. If I had a day off, I would work. So the only time I would ever really have is before work. Mm-hmm. And I used to dread it. I used to hate it. Now I'm so grateful that I had no other opportunity but then to do it.
Yeah.
It's not even something I recognize now. I mean, I go to bed at midnight, I'm up at 3. I go to bed at 9, I'm up at 3. It just is part of my lifestyle.
Yeah. That's awesome.
What about you? I know that you're into the working out. Let's get where's the iron fit for you and your development of infrastructure?
So my approach to fitness in life is it's kind of understanding how my brain works, and I love KPIs, I love numbers, and I like achieving a goal. I just know that's my personality type. So I'd always struggled with working out. It's one of those things where it's like I know I need to do it, but there was no structure to it. There was no, and I can visualize the moment. It was 4 or 5 years ago. I was walking and I was thinking, okay, how do I incentivize myself to actually get into a routine? And I thought, okay, it's January 20th and I've barely done anything this year. Let's say I work out, I think the number was 108 times for the rest of the year. And I just said 108, it's like 3 times per week. It seems achievable. And like I started, and every day I had my notes app on my phone. I still do, where it has my KPI and it had that number. And every time I worked out, I chipped it down. So it's like, okay, now I can chip away at this and I achieve that. Then the next year and the next year. And I mean, now we're sitting in 2025 and my goal is averaging, I read somewhere where Fortune 500 CEOs, the biggest thing they have in common is they all work out, or like 90% of them work out 5 days a week. Like fitness is their main thing that they have in common. So I was like, oh, I'll do 5 days a week. And having that number in place gave me the confidence to start. And then really it came down to creating a system similar to you where I had accountability. Again, I know myself and I'm not big. I can't motivate myself. It's just something that I don't have instilled in me. But at the same time, I knew I don't like disappointing other people. Like that's something that's just, I'm a big, I don't want people around me to be disappointed. So I signed up for a gym, and it's a class style gym. And then I signed up for all the workouts I would do for the month. And then I would physically have to go in and say, no, I'm not going to go to a workout if I cancel, or if I don't show up, it's like a $25 charge. So now it's creating these strategic coach talks about boundaries, but it's creating this environment where on the first of the month I go in, I sign up for my classes for the month. It's F45. Shout out to Mark Wahlberg if you're listening. Great class style workout, but again, 6 a.m. wake up at 5:30, be there by 6, done by 7, in the office by 8:30. But creating those, understanding yourself and not feeling bad about like, oh, I'm not good at working out in a gym, or I've never been consistent. Like it's rare that anybody's born with that habit, and rarely are people born with the love of waking up at 4:30, 5:30 in the morning, 3:30 in the morning. But if you create these guardrails of, okay, what's your goal? My goal is to work out 100 times this year. Okay, now you have a vision in mind. And God forbid you don't do anything for 2 months. You could still achieve it, but it's going to be more action-packed. And then once you have it, learn your weaknesses and work around them. Hey, I don't like working out by myself. Okay, there's classes. I hate letting people down. Okay, well then you sign up for a class, and I know if I cancel, the instructor sees that, and I feel personally guilty. Or if I don't wake up at, like, this is a good dynamic of, I have tried. I know I could wake up at 5:30. It's easy for me. My alarm's set at 5:30. I'm ready to go. I'm either waking up at 5:30 for work or 5:30 for working out. I have tried working out by myself at home and keeping the same routine. And without that public accountability, I have hit snooze and gone right back to bed. And I've worked out. This is coming from somebody that's worked out. I think I've done over 400 F45 classes. And you think, okay, it's ingrained. It's not. If tomorrow, if I say I'm going to do it by myself at 5:30, I know my lizard brain is going to come in and hit snooze, and I'm going to go on with sleeping in. Versus the alternative of, I have a class scheduled tomorrow, I'm there, and it's knowing I know some workouts, I know some style lifts, but F45 created that infrastructure of creating an idea of what to do. And you could just do it with a group of friends. It's why sports, thankless. I mean, growing up, I played organized soccer for a few years, but then in high school was my first real dive into serious sports. And the biggest mental change for me was playing football in high school. And our workouts, our 2-a-day started at 6 a.m. And if we didn't show up on time, everybody was running. So it's as a 15-year-old kid, you're like, oh shit, I need to go. Like, it's not your parents waking you up. It's the first time where you're like, if I don't show up, like everybody else around me will be punished for this. And it's a long-winded answer of saying find the things that work for you. In general, public accountability works best. So I'm sure you're not alone at the gym at 4 a.m. I know you have a club of people that are there, and if you don't show up, you know that they're going to ask themselves where you are. And if you don't show up consistently, now you're not only going again. It's easy to convince yourself, hey, oh, it wasn't a good day. I'm a little sore. It's a little cold. But if there's other people around, trying to explain that to them is a different ballgame.
You know, motivation is a feeling. Discipline is a habit or a lifestyle. There was a guy that I helped out. He's a local banker and helped me out with my last couple residential mortgages and stuff, and great guy. He came into the office one day and he's like all pumped up. He's like, man, I've been listening to your show, got me all inspired. I've lost all this weight, haven't been into shape since high school. And he's like, I'm so motivated to keep going. I said, fuck your motivation. It's discipline that gets you to the win, because I don't feel like it 90% of the time, but I don't let it register. It doesn't even, I am not letting the feeling even creep into my mind. It's discipline. This is who I am. This is what I do. But it took a long time to do that, dude. It's not something like you said. You don't just wake up and do that. You know, if you wake up at 6 o'clock and you want to wake up at 3 o'clock, don't try to wake up at 3 o'clock the next day. Do like 15 minutes for a week, you know, and then just, you know, slowly go to that. And when people were like, how do you wake up at 3? I set my alarm clock. But I've been doing this shit for 20 years. You know, it's not probably 10 years of true discipline where I've been dialed in at waking up at 3 o'clock, whatever it is. It's not even a thought anymore, because by 7 o'clock in the morning, I've had an hour workout, hour and a half workout, and an hour to hour and a half personal development. And I'm doing whatever I need to do that day. So I got 3 hours of development in before 7 o'clock, before the sun comes up. And that's what works for me. But it doesn't mean it's right for everyone. The best diet, the best nutrition, the best thing that anyone can do is the one that they will consistently stick with. Because, you know, James Clear, we don't rise to the level of our goals. Like, you know, you figured out the system that works for you, because you said if you work out at home, you're more likely going to hit that snooze. Well, then you're not going to hit your goal. But you have a system in place to achieve your goals. Setting goals is one thing, but setting goals that are able to be achieved relies purely on the system that you have in place to get there.
And I do agree with it's not for everybody, but at the same time, waking up early, the benefits there is there's nothing else going on. Like, I know personally I've tried working out when I get home, and it's easy to say, well, I've got 17 other things. I've got to cook dinner. There's traffic. There's the unpredictability versus if I wake up at 5:30, there's nobody out there. There's nobody doing anything. I'm not getting a call. I'm not getting an email. Like, it's the earlier you wake up, you're clear-headed in terms of the world hasn't started yet. It is cool working in, so we have a team in Bulgaria too, and we go there once a year to work with them. And it is kind of nice working in Bulgaria because you're 8 hours ahead of the U.S., so you can really start your day on your own foot. You can go work out. You can go. Now, the downside is you get a full day's worth of work in, and then emails start coming in there. Like 4 p.m. is 8 a.m. here, so then emails and meetings start, so you can easily distract yourself into working a double day. But at the same time, it's the earlier you're up, the more opportunity you have for controlling your own environment versus the alternative of you wake up, you've got, I've never been in that ability of I can't wake up and join a meeting 5 minutes later. I need at least an hour buffer to let myself kind of assimilate into real life is probably the best way to,
And I think for me, that's why I just choose violence right off the rip, dude. You know, I wake up at 3 o'clock. My brain don't start working until probably 6. You know, and then half the time it don't even work then. But I know this is just part of who I am. I have drove to the gym and probably could have got pulled over by the cops because I was borderline delusional from lack of sleep. You know, where they probably pulled me over thinking I was drunk. It's just part of who I am. It's my identity now. And there's days where maybe it isn't the best thing to go do it. But I don't ever negotiate with myself because I know that if I do that once, that's maybe just a mistake. But if I do it twice, I'm forming a new habit into a wrong direction.
Yeah. You're chipping
so-
away at the block.
The power for me of being able to just do it regardless of how I feel, it changed everything for me. And now it's just, I would feel worse by not doing it than I would by going and having a shitty workout.
Yeah. No, I'm 100% with you. It's I going at any time in the morning, you could really get, I mean, it's kind of a win-win, right? You show up and you might be half awake, but if you start going through the routine, you're already kind of in it. By the time your mind realizes what's going on, it's talking to my younger self of not having that habit and to growing it. It takes consistency.
Mm-hmm. And it, sometimes just showing up to the gym is the win that day.
Mm-hmm.
Being intentional about the showing up and then putting in the effort that you have that day.
Yeah.
Being 100% and giving 100% are completely different. Because a lot of days I haven't been 100% for a long ass time. I mean, 50% is probably my normal recovery and where I'm at. I know it's not the best, but it's what I have and it's a season and I understand the season, so I understand the reality of it. But 50% is my max capacity that day. I'm giving 100% of that. So it might only be 50% of my best, but I'm going all in on that day.
So you had
giving everything I have in the tank.
The knee issue for a while. Did you tell me about that? So let's say I've had ailments, sore neck, pull something, you're working out. Are you still showing up the next day at 4 a.m.? Or are you taking a step back and saying, let me figure out this? If your knee's messed up, obviously you're not going to be going in and doing squats the next day. Or are you?
It depends on the injury. But if I have rehab to do, I tore my right pec, partial tear a couple years ago. The knee injury, the rehab for it was excruciating.
Yeah.
I still had shit to do though. And the other part of it, the accountability factor.
Mm-hmm.
Me being hurt doesn't excuse me from not being there for my brothers in the crew. So we call it the 4 a.m. crew, old school gym, 4 a.m. crew. There's a bunch of savages in here. We're all hurt. Me being hurt doesn't validate me not being here to support the other guys. Now, I've also been hurt and, like on bench press, I got hurt partially, torn pec from benching. And then I'm there the next week trying to help lift off, 200, 300, 400 pounds, whatever. The other guy. And Corey, the guy that's the CEO of the gym, the supplement company, he's like, Jake, don't be an idiot. Just get out of here. Go sit down. But I can help. I can give them cues. I can give them pointers so I can be a part of it. And then I can still do what I need to do that day for my recovery. I think not wavering on that part, because it's hard when you're hurt. It's when you want to not be there. Part of it's shame or almost embarrassment that you're not able to do anything. But I think keeping that routine in place, keeping that system and structure there, it just keeps that revolving door of lifestyle in check. And it doesn't give you the opportunity to waver into bad habits. So that's my personal, thought on it. But
awesome.
So let's talk about your business, man. Let's talk about the digital marketing space, what it means to you, where you're at with it now, and proceed innovation. Innovate?
Innovative.
Innovative, okay. So obviously I'm not well equipped to even talk about it, so I'll give you the floor. Tell me all about your business.
Yeah, so Proceed Innovative, our focus is helping businesses grow and generate more business from people finding them online. It's a pretty simple objective for a digital marketing agency. At the same time, a lot of digital marketing agencies might lose focus on what the goal is, because with marketing and any even personal marketing, you could spend 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, 360. There's a lot of things you could do, but not having a clear objective is where people get in trouble. So it's nice that when we solidify our objective of we're generating new leads for the businesses we work with, now we have a clear idea of, and a lot of props to my business partner for setting up our core values, where the first one is be efficient, effective, and results driven, is what are the ways we can get to the solution and generate a business lead for our clients in the most effective way possible. And it's what keeps us passionate and what makes me interested in the work we do every day is we seek out those businesses that have been around for 10 plus years, that have an incredible brand, an incredible product or service that, I mean, everybody you ask in the community, they're just a staple. Everybody knows them by name. Everybody's willing to refer them. And you just can't tell any of that from what you find online. And it's that missed opportunity of, okay, why aren't they being found? They're missing out on great business. And at the same time, they're creating such a great value for the community, is helping those businesses increase their visibility and generate leads. There's a lot of changes going on. Just thinking about some of the challenges in marketing right now is, I mean, since the release of ChatGPT, things are changing at a faster and faster rate. At the same time, it's allowing companies like ours to find new solutions and new strategies to that, again, that objective of generate new leads for our clients. With that objective in mind, it's we have a clear idea of what we're being valued on. And at the same time, it's keeping our team focused on that and the new strategies that are coming in play. And now we're starting to see some rankings in AI search engines and the ability to use these tools to get your objective. And a lot of keywords and buzzwords are thrown around of AI is changing businesses and you need to do this and you need to do that, but you don't need to do anything if it doesn't align with your objective, or you need to go all in if it does. And the business we have in terms of helping companies, we work with businesses nationwide to help them grow, and it's fantastic really being able to impact and talk with the business owner and learn their story and learn what makes them tick, and then helping them grow is an incredible opportunity that we have in our business.
You know, telling a story, being able to take an event in your life and cascade that message to make an impact, it's really difficult, dude. And a lot of people don't understand that their story is very valuable. I was one of them people. I now understand much more clearly. I didn't value myself nearly as much for the longest time. And what I figured out was the ones that heard my story and that I would open up to, they were the ones that would come to me like, dude, you have to get this out. You have to talk about it, because you can change a lot of people's life. And I thought I was being selfish by talking about it, but I realized I was being selfish by not talking about it, because I can make an impact. Or maybe it's one person, maybe it's 100,000 people, whatever it is. But one person impacting them and helping their life makes it worth it. And I've been able to help quite a few people, and that to me is so fulfilling. You know, simple scales, complex fails. Back to the basics. We talk about, you know, the simple things. It sounds like that's your focus. Being focused to me is just having one set agenda and one thing that you're doing, and nothing else matters but that one. In an instant gratification, you know, society that we have, that doesn't seem to be the norm very often. So your simple, like how you look at the business and the simple part of it, sticking to what works. Sometimes you don't need to be innovative and evolve and do all. Sometimes you just need to do more of what already works well. And
that you couldn't have said it better.
Yeah, minor adjustments along the way.
And that's why the rules of search engine optimization and the ideal Google ad setup, it's not a secret. It's all the same thing as nutrition and a good workout plan. It's online. It's why we work with businesses. One, they understand the delegate and the who, not how. Finding somebody that can do what they need done, not just trying to do it all themselves. And two, it's things evolve fast enough where you need a partner that's seeing this we're doing strategies across 80 different businesses where when one works, our team is effective in delegating and disseminating that strategy to other businesses where they can work too. And the cool thing is, I know some businesses might be nervous about getting their message out there, but a lot of the times they have websites already. They have a product or a service that they're offering, and they're not doing the things, the simple but effective strategies. Simple as I'm using simple as it's easy to follow. It's not easy to implement. It's the strategies that help you rank online. So when somebody does Google something, because it's nice, right? You jump on Google and you go, I want a business lawyer, or I want a sign for my company, or I want a dental hand tool or a CNC machine or a bar swivel. And you or a moving company. I mean, you Google this and you go, I need something, and then our brains are conditioned to say, okay, Google has done their research. I'm going to pick one of the top 5 companies. I might click on all 5, and then I'm going to do my own research. But if you're not in those top 10 positions, first page of Google, you've lost out on that opportunity. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of great businesses that can grow and have grown from being found there. And there's probably a lot of great businesses that they're doing incredible work and they're not being found and they're invisible to the world. And it's that opportunity which really drives myself and our team.
I'm sure you've seen it and understand it much more, clearly than I do, but how many people have had the top tier product and never marketed it correctly and it never got out there to make an impact? Mm-hmm. And it's got to be devastating to someone like you who's probably seen it, where you're right there able to help someone, they don't take the deal for whatever reason, and then
Jacob,
they never make anything.
We've met with businesses and we'll look at their website ahead of time. We'll look at their competitors and we'll make some assumptions about, okay, this business is probably X amount of years in business. They're X. And I remember one clearly of like, oh, I was like, this is probably a 10-year-old business. Like they're just trying to get their feet under them. And then you meet with them. They're like, yeah, we're about $60 million domestically, another $60 million internationally. And you're thinking, you're like, how are you? The capacity and the grit to build a business is incredibly difficult. At the same time, doing it despite what you find online is even harder. And finding those businesses and helping them really take the opportunities and say, okay, well, if you're doing this much work and you're looking for more business and you have a massive sales team, you know what your sales team is probably doing. They're probably calling people, and then those people are Googling you because, again, you get a call every day. You're like, let me do my own research. And then somebody Googles you and goes, I can't trust this company with my $1 million project. Like this website hasn't been updated since 1999. How am I going to be able to trust them with doing something that they said they could do? It's just an extension of who we are now. And that's where we come in. We help those businesses not have to worry about how people are finding them, or does your website look good on a mobile device, or it's all these little things that can make or break a deal. And when 1 to call it 5 deals a month can make a big difference for your business, that's investing in something like this makes it a no-brainer.
Absolutely. Return on marketing, as a KPI, I don't know if that's something that, you look at or have your clients look at, but, your brand is everything. Who are you? Who do you display yourself to be? And if you don't have one, then you're not anybody. And like your business, if you can't showcase who you are with proof, undeniable wins, a stack of proof so undeniable that I am this fucking person, this is who I am, and you can't do anything to say about it because here's a reality check. Good enough. That's it. Yeah. And if you don't have a brand, then your business isn't your brand. You are your brand. Your business is just part of who you are. And so when I realized that part of it, that's what I started my journey for. If I want to make an impact, if I want to leave a legacy, if I want to help other people, I got to have some validation to show that I'm able to do that. Not my words. I got to show. What is the proof? If you don't have proof, you don't have anything. And really, I look at building a brand like documenting your life with good intention to help other people. And that's at least my personal perspective on it. Yeah. But if I don't have a brand of who I am, I don't have nothing. I'm nobody.
Yeah. Deep words.
And I think that there was a quote that I heard right before I started the show, and it hit me so hard. It was like I got ran over by a semi-truck. You die twice. The first time is when you're buried in the ground. The last time, or the second time is the last time that somebody says your name. So all these great people that we hear about in books and stories told and all that, there's probably 100x more that we don't know about. And my grandpa was the one that kind of kicked that off for me because he's really my mentor. He really created the foundation of who I am today. And he's really big in the church, has been for 60 years. He's 80 some years old now, still doing it. But he's helped so many people his whole entire life. And I've heard so many great stories from my family, but he's never told them. So I made it a mission for me. I am going to get my grandpa on the podcast and interview him and let him cascade a message to the rest of the world. That's what kickstarted it all off. And I did that. He was the very first interview I ever did. And
Wow.
I didn't release it till episode 100 because it meant that much to me.
Very cool. Very cool. I'll
So,
go back and I'll
Patrick-
find that because I remember when I started listening, it was the first few episodes were grainy, and you went for it. You're like, "Hey, we're doing it. Audio's gonna suck. There's no infrastructure to this podcast. We're
I had
we're
no
going
lights.
for it."
My camera's overheating. The first episode, Corey Gregory had to take it to commercial break. It was a disaster. But you know what? That's that starting point, dude. That's waking up 15 minutes earlier. And, you know, your repetition creates your reputation.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, I'm excited.
That's it.
I'll go back and listen to that episode 100.
Yeah,
about your
you'll have to let me
grandpa.
know what you think. I'll be seeing you here in a month or so, too. Right? February?
Strategic coach. Shout out.
We got to shout out Strategic Coach real quick. I'll let you lay the foundation for that. What is a day in Strategic Coach like? Walking in and then walking out. What happens to you? What do you think? How do you feel?
To add a little context, so Strategic Coach is a coaching program for entrepreneurs. The goal of it is to create thinking models that a business owner or an owner of multiple businesses can use to manage their insanity in life. And the pivotal events that Strategic Coach does is these quarterly meetings where you go in and it's you and 20 other owners and you talk about the trials and tribulations of owning a business and the changes and the economy and everything that could go wrong and it has gone wrong. We also talk about the wins and the successes and the things that have gone well. And it's Jacob and I are on the same page in terms of about a year ago, we both signed up for Superpowers, which is a virtual assistant program. And again, it comes down to, you know, the answers, but taking the step is the most challenging part. And Buy Back Your Time talks about, okay, well, you need a virtual assistant to help you out. And I think I had this swirling around my brain for 3 years before I felt confident enough to do it. And I jumped into it with one of the coaches, a Strategic Coach, that day talked about how, I'll never forget, he talked about how he was a email addict. And his goal was to detach himself from any email. And this is a gentleman that has a very successful business. And he talks about how he's like, I can't even get close to my email or my life falls apart. So he's like, I voice message my assistant what to answer. She texts me the emails that I need to look at. And it's hilarious thinking about it because they're running such a large scale operation, but they've created these barriers. But this program, Strategic Coach, essentially just allows you to learn about these strategies and learn what works, what doesn't. And again, it's 20 to 30 of us. We all get the same instruction. We go out into the real world for 90 days, come back, share what worked, what didn't, adjust from there and go on. And the success of it and the value of it comes down to what you mentioned at the beginning is the ability to dream of, if I was in a silo right now and I only knew about the success of my business and nobody else's, there would be a lot of things where I would feel like were impossible. And then you go to Strategic Coach and then you talk to an owner that's doing what you're doing, but 10x or 100x the size. And they're a human being. I mean, they're right there with you. They drove a car in and they took a plane in and they slept in a hotel room, and they're the same. I mean, they have the same tools, 10 fingers, 10 toes, but they're able to do what you're able to do purely based on their thoughts. And that's the cool thing about Coach, is interacting with people that are ahead of you and being humbled by what they're able to do, but also being direct and saying, okay, if you could do it, well, what am I missing? Here's what I'm doing. What are you doing? And leaving that day with an abundance of ideas. My business partner and I actually have a rule of 24 hours of digestion after Strategic Coach, because we'll usually call each other and you'll like blast 30 ideas at somebody that hasn't been through the process. And it's, wait a second, like, hey, I just had a normal day of work and now you're coming at me with like, we need to do this and change this. And you end up accomplishing 1 to 3 of those things, but they're game changing and pivotal for your business. So shout out Strategic Coach.
Yeah, shout out Strategic Coach, Coach Nooner, Stephen Nooner.
Yeah.
That man has changed my life forever with coaching and with Superpowers. Shout out Dane, my EA. going to get your ass on this podcast soon, and you're just terrified to do it. But I'm coming for you, Dane. And let's shout out Superpowered, the book. Stephen Nooner, Ryan Casson, Shannon Waller. That book is amazing, man. Whew, that is next level right there. Strategic Coach summed up to me.
If you're watching on video, I've got a collection of them. I mean, we've got Superpowered right here. We've got Buy Back Your Time. I mean, these just sit, again, right? I know myself, and if they sit here long enough, I'll have to pick them up at some point because your brain starts looking at it and saying, okay, let me at least pick it up. Let me read the first page. And shout out to those structures and those programs for creating the opportunity.
I got to take a minute right now. Buy Back Your Time. Coach, Dan Martell, dude, fucking thank you, man. Shit is amazing. I'm grateful to have been, able to be a part of that. Dan Martell has changed my life, and it's only been a few months of really working in that group. My God, it's just incredible. Just incredible, dude. And
there's a lot of training programs and training sessions and 3-day seminars. And my recommendation to any business owner, any human being, is read this book first. We had a client that, every time I hear a business owner, and you could feel it, right? You could feel the anxiety of like, what do I do? What? And I send him this book, and I've had multiple business owners that we work with talk about like, wow, I spent $10,000 and went to a 3-day seminar, and it's all boiled down to a single book that now at least I can start with this as the foundation. Mm-hmm. And it all makes sense, but when you read it, you think to yourself like, oh, this is, again, common sense presented in an understandable way is what makes these books and authors and coaches different.
And we talk about this in Coach, but information and implementation are two vastly different things. Mm-hmm. So you can have all the information in the world, and it can actually be detrimental to you because of your rate or inability to implement it. So information overload, dude, is a real thing, and I found myself doing that as well, where I'll collect so much without inputting anything, and then realize like I'm not doing myself a good service here at all.
New book, if you haven't read it, Yuval Noah Harari, Nexus. It's wild. He talks about it. The whole objective is distilling AI into a more understandable format of where we've come to where we are. But his main takeaway is information is not truth. Information is power. But you saying if we just have more information, we're going to get to the truth faster is not the reality of the world we live in. And it's oh man, there's so many examples of just like taking in too much. You're taking in more information, more just things that are buzzing you out versus taking a step back and saying what's actually useful. And you see these successful people. More. A good example, our boy Warren Buffett is sitting there in his house without a computer reading K2s every day, like very specific information. He's not scrolling Twitter to figure out what to buy. He's using the information that he knows is useful, and you see it with the most successful people is they protect themselves from the noise, and they know where to look and what information is actually a signal to take an action and what's just the hype.
So there are shortcuts that people take that never work, but there are accelerators that do work. Shortcuts are never going to work. I think you got to do the work. There is nothing that you can do to out hustle the work. It's just got to be the work is the work, like you were saying about the K2. It's got to be done, but you can't accelerate the pace at which it happens. You just got to be real damn careful if you try to over accelerate, because over acceleration becomes a shortcut, which becomes something of failure that will be the outcome. There are no shortcuts. It might not be, easy, but it is always simple normally. Normally the thing that we have to do is the thing that we are avoiding the most. And that's the hard work. And that's where normally the outcome that we're desiring, that's where it lies. Strategic Coach is that way too for me, where that is a toolbox like no other as far as how to get better. But if you try to implement all of it, you're going to fall flat on your face. And it took me 3 years to get the time system somewhat dialed in.
Jacob, I was Oh, I was just about to say 3 years too. It sounds so ridiculous to tell somebody like join this program and you're gonna have a breakthrough on year 3. But I remember the exact training class where I was like, I finally get it. And it's not saying that the other 3 years were a waste. It was incremental improvements until one day you look back and you go, holy shit! Like this is the thought and the training and the abilities just. Your mindset changes overnight, and it just takes 3 years to get there.
It's the compound effect. You're accumulating all this data and all this homework and all this, fact or not fact or what's it look like for me, and then it all clicks. You don't see it. You don't see any progress, but then it's incremental, unseen progress that comes out in massive light in one exact time.
Yeah.
It's like that overnight success. It took me 14 years,
Yeah. Yeah. It's very rare. It's the ability to handle and sustain success is dependent on how much work goes into it. You see the opposite lottery winners usually can't handle the amount of money and inflow, which keeps me motivated because, I have a net worth goal and I'm chipping away at it and we're reaching it, but it's this ability of like, if I magically woke up with $1 billion, like think about that. If you're listening to this, like everybody wants to, I would assume most people want financial success as a way for freedom. But if you woke up with $1 billion, strategically, how would you start? What would you do? Would it be in a bank account? Like, would you go to like 6 different bank accounts? Who would you even call? Like think about the fact that you'd Google, I have $1 billion and I need help with it. Like think about the person you're going to get on the other end of that Google ranking, like those things. But if you're incrementally increasing, then you get to that level one day. Potentially, again, it's a far-fetched goal, but if you get to that one day, it's not overnight, and you've structured your life in a way where you know how to handle it. But it's the alternative. Hey, I want. There's an abundance of things that people want, but you imagine yourself getting it. And you're like, oh, what would I even do with it? Like, what would I want a Ferrari. It's like, oh, well. I live downtown in Chicago. I don't think that's going to be a very practical approach. Like, what am I going to street park that? Like, that's a crazy thing to think. But when you visualize it, at least now you start putting together the thought around it of, okay, let me imagine me having this. What are the tools I need to get there? Why don't I implement these tools now of understanding basic financial management and how to budget and all these little things of, God, I forgot the motivational video, but there's something talking about like if like you want to manage a Fortune 500 company, but you can't even do your dishes right. Like these are these little things of like do the little things right, then you can outsource them, then you could delegate them. But if you can't even wake up on time, do the little thing. But it's good. It's reverse motivation, right? Because if you can, now you're okay. I'm improving every day a little bit. I can wake up like I know I can wake up at 5:30 in the morning. Like that's not outlandish. Now I could do that. Now what else can I do? And it builds on top of itself.
Well, and ultimately, the person that we become is the reason we accomplish things in life.
Yeah.
And so you look at a lot of millionaires that lost everything, through financial crisis or whatever else would happen, but then they come back not long after and make money again. And then you look at the lottery winners that lose it all or spend it all within months. And then they're miserable. They're right back where they started, because it's all about the person you were when you got to that point. Foundationally, if you win the lottery and you've always been poor as far as the mindset goes, you're going to end up right back in that same place. It's inevitable.
Jacob, I'm going to give a big shout out to one of my favorite books. It's called Secrets of the Millionaire Mind, T. Harv Eker. It is, he used to do these live seminars. I think the company got bought out. He's still doing it internationally. If you could find one, go to it. The book is incredible, but he talks about this, everybody has a financial thermostat where it's like, I'm worth X amount. And it's funny to think because you could sit there and if you ask somebody, they'll write it down. That you don't need to share it, but then you'll see your life kind of rotate around that number. And you've seen people that go past that number and then they'll self-sabotage and come down because they think they're only worth that much. But if you fall below it, every person right now, if you say, okay, let's say you only have $1, they go, oh, wait, no, I'm not worth $1. Like I know I can get to 10,000. I know I can get to 50,000. But then once they get past that point, it's like, oh, like you get nervous about like, oh, what do I do with, what if I have $500,000? Like, well, that's a lot of money. I don't think I'm worth that much. Like, and you start self-sabotaging. That book is incredible. If you're looking for a psychological foundational guide to finances or just a starting point, Secrets of the Millionaire Mind is, I mean, it came out 20 years ago and it's still relevant today. And it's not buy the stock or invest in this, but it's just basic strategies of bucket your money, believe in yourself, do these things and create these. I mean, it's a little cheesy in the perfect way of they have these mantras after every chapter. You say this to yourself to start conditioning yourself to believe. So, I mean, that's been a pivotal one. My parents sent me to one of those. I don't know why they sent me to this when I was 16. And I think I subconsciously learned it. And then it didn't really hit me until I was 22 to actually start implementing any of this. But it's a huge book and part of my life is that Secrets of the Millionaire Mind.
I have not read that one. I will definitely, I wrote it down. I got it on my list.
Yeah.
I'll check it out.
Hopefully, if you get it done in the next month when I see you, I could talk about this book all day.
I can tell. I can see you lit up. You're like ready to go in on it. So, Patrick, dude, thanks for coming on today. This has been an absolute honor. I'm going to leave the floor to you to close it out. Your final thoughts. What else you got going on, or what's on your mind with everything we talked about? So, hit me with some final thoughts.
Oh, final thoughts. It's that one of my affirmations that I want to share with you and your audience is change is inevitable, but you not only want to accept change, you want to embrace it actively because our world is changing fast. And if you're nervous about it, so are we. If you're scared by it, so are we. But at the same time, if you don't embrace it and you hit it head on, it's going to mess you up. And it's that difficulty, right, of you see it in people that don't want to embrace change, and change isn't going to wait for you. It's going to happen. And at the same time, you see those companies that are changing the world, and it's because they know they're not on stable footing at any point. And if they're not embracing the difficulties, the changes in their life, the things that are going on around them, it's not a recipe for success. So change is inevitable in our world. If you wake up today and you think you're going to be doing the same thing in 50 years, you're wrong. We probably all are. And then worst case or best case scenario, I'm wrong and you can do the same thing for 50 years, but at least you're better prepared for it than just believing that it's going to be there. So it is inevitable, but you must not only accept that it's inevitable, but embracing that actively.
I love it. Embrace the change. That's powerful, my friend. Anything else you got? Any other final thoughts?
No, thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to see you in a month and talk about Secrets of the Millionaire Mind.
Absolutely,
Our boy T. Harv Eker.
Let's go. I'll see you here in the Windy City in about a month. Hopefully it's not -10 out like it is right now in Ohio.
No, if it is, it's change is inevitable. If it's 10 degrees, I'm sure. I mean, you know what I know? It's your hotel room's going to have heat. You're going to either be close by or have a ride. The strategic coach is going to have heat. Like we're not. This isn't an outdoor event. Like it could be 0 degrees, -10. It's not going to change our lives or approaches to this training.
I can tell you what, it might be cold outside, but it's going to be on fire in that classroom, boy, with Stephen You're coaching. Man, because it always is. I'll tell you what, that's something, a fact right there. That's one thing that doesn't change is who I walk in that day and who I walk out of is completely different. I have been a different person for the last 2 years, every quarter out of strategic coach, and I don't think that's ever going to change. I think that's going to be a continuum. Yeah. And I think that's what the joy in strategic coach is all really about.
Yeah. So fantastic. Thank you.
All right, Patrick, my friend, I appreciate it. This has been an Iron and Infrastructure podcast. Thank you for coming on, Patrick, and we're out. This episode is brought to you by Max Effort Muscle. For all your supplement needs, go to maxeffortmuscle.com.